Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Criterion Connection. I'm Wade,
And I'm Joe.
and we're here to talk about the 2018 documentary, skateboard documentary, a life documentary, stuff like that. It's called Minding the Gap by Bing Liu. This came out 2 years ago. I remember watching. I talked about it on the Make of This podcast forever ago, 2 years ago, and talked about it then. It got put on Hulu. I don't remember if it was always a Hulu documentary.
I think Hulu bought the distribution rights.
Yeah. So I haven't watched this movie since it's been on Hulu. Now I watched it recently for this review, and yeah, I mean I've seen it. Joe, have you seen this movie?
This is my first time watching it.
And what was your general first reactions?
Well, I got Hoop Dream vibes.
Yes, which we've covered.
It's a very similar kind of like you're following primarily three stories.
Yeah.
And then you kind of branch off.
Well, it's more.
But here's the difference. The documentarian himself is one of the main stories.
Yeah.
Rather than back in Hoop Dreams, I believe it was Stephen James that directed that. He's just focusing on the three kids and following them over the next few years. This one's a little interesting because this is more of like a passion project from Mr. Bing Liu.
Yes.
Young documentary filmmaker, and we'll see what he does after this. I am very interested. Because there's a reason this was nominated for an Oscar. It's real good.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here, I'm watching it, I'm getting Hoop Dream vibes. And I'm like, man, we're just going to be watching this movie about these three guys linked together by skateboarding. And bad shit's going to happen. I'm feeling it.
Yeah.
But, not to give too much away. That's not exactly how this goes.
There's a lot. It's not.
This
bad,
takes some twists and turns.
It's for something like I'll say Bing Liu got very lucky with happenstance and just like the idea of like how things kind of connect.
Yeah,
it's not like it's one of those things like you think it's definitely like they pre-planned this, they wrote this. This is fake. No, it's not fake.
It really works, and the way he structures it, and the way he tells the stories, brilliant. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. The editing could not be better.
The editing is the star of this movie.
And here's what I'm gonna say. To me, what the movie was, you start off by looking at these three kids in this poor town in Illinois, Rockford, who have rough lives, but they find each other. They find skateboarding as a love, and they meet each other at the skate park. They become friends.
Different ages, too, because Kiri was like 11.
Yeah, Kier's super young. Zach is older, and Bing's right in between, if I remember.
No, it was I wrote them down. It was Kier is 11, Zach was 15, and Bing was 17.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And they all use skateboarding as an escape. It's the one thing they love to do, and it became a haven for all three of them. And as the documentary unfolds, we find out why.
Yeah.
And not only do we find out why, but over time, the stories morph. Yeah, we deal with different problems. This is like a coming-of-age story.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Also, I mentioned that like people were 11, 15, 17. That's from like the previous stuff when they met each other. That's when they met each other. The movie actually takes place. I think Kier is now 11. He's 17. I think Bing and Zach are like in the early 20s.
Mid-20s.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a tale.
And it moves, and it goes over a few years. Because there's a lot that happens. And I find it starts about the three kids using skateboard. They find each other, they become friends, and skateboarding is a haven for them to escape the problems in their life and find something positive in a different community away from everybody else. And the movie, by the end, to me, the theme is self-realization.
It's the transition to adulthood.
It's a transition to adulthood, but it's also like, I just think the most important thing is that it's each story, not just the three guys, not just Bing, Zach, and Kier. Every single person.
And Nina.
I said person.
Yeah.
Every single person featured, by the end of the movie, has this moment of self-realization and self-clarity where to push forward into the plot, we find out that each one of these kids dealt with an abusive home, and they dealt with not great, circumstances. They, a lot of them drop out of school. I think Bing is the one that graduates, and he goes on, I think, into college and goes into film, I think. But like Zach, he drops out. He becomes a roofer when his girlfriend gets pregnant, and he has a kid. Kier, he's kind of the one lagging behind.
He's just getting out of high school, so he's like...
Yeah, but he goes, and he's like, well, I gotta go get a job, and like, I don't want to rely on people. And he deals with his own issues, but they all are kind of linked by abusive childhoods that they find out about that through the movie. Like, they didn't know about all this about each other.
Especially Bing's. That was
Yeah, with Bing's story that we find out kind of later, his stepdad was very physically abusive with him and his mother. And one of the crazy, like, hard moments to watch
is the interview with the mother.
Is him interviewing his own mother and going for those questions, not holding back. And there's so much in this movie they touch on. And it's a really powerful.
And then they get to the point where, like, Zach is kind of becoming...
Yeah, he becomes a villain partway through this movie.
And then Bing's like, that my stepdad would abuse me and stuff like that. And it's kind of like he's seeing it in Zach at this point.
Right, and then you have... By the end of the movie, Zach sits there and he's reflecting on it. And he's like, I don't want the reason why my life sucks and is so hard is that it's me.
Yeah.
And it's that moment of self-realization where he realizes he is an agent of his own choices, and a lot of the things he's chosen to do has led him into this path.
Yeah. And it's just...
And like Nina dealing with the relationship with Zach and how it gets physical, how they're kind of toxic for each other.
That's what I'm saying. Nina's kind of like the de facto fourth person they cover.
Right. And I put Kier's mother in there.
Yes.
Because we get Kier's mother dealing with the new boyfriend for part of this movie. And how controlling he is in such a small period of time that we see him. It's really like...
That's not just abuse. They're also talking about, like, Kier deals with race with his friend. Yeah. Like that one guy's like,
He's comparing his own struggle... One of Kier's white friends compares his own struggle with being African American,
and then one guy with the guitar is like, "It's not the same thing."
Yeah, and that's when you're like, Kier's at least hanging out with better people, and people who think more.
Yeah,
and it's really like you see these people grow apart, but grow into who they're becoming, and like I said, have these moments of self-realization. Kier hated his father for beating him, but at the same time loves his father and realizes that his father was imparting good wisdom to him, just not in the right way.
It's really great. I think Kier's story is probably, to me, the strongest, because it's not comparing people's lives, but like I think his
arcs
is so, like, especially near the end where he kind of, it's like he forgives the past a little bit and he wants to move forward. Also, you see him when he's like a kid, he's stomping on that skateboard. He has so much rage and anger, but when you look at him now, he's very, well, I don't know about now, but like in the documentary, he's very positive.
Yeah.
He's very like smile, like, you know, he's talking about like, you know, he goes from being a dishwasher to like a server. And he's like, I used to do that. And he starts laughing. Like, he's like, at one point where he's like, wait, what day is it? It's Thursday. I'll have to work tomorrow. And he starts laughing and he starts skateboarding. By the way, these guys are pretty good skateboarders.
Oh, well, Keir, by the end, we find out that Keir gets a sponsorship.
Yeah.
And that he's actually succeeding in, like, he finally gets the gumption to move out. That was one thing he talks about worrying about. Is, you know, he wants to be self-sufficient, but he's afraid. Like, he's got this extra baggage with not just his race, but kind of the way he lives.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't want to be a fuck-up. Like, when I do it, I want to be ready.
Yeah.
And he moves to another city, and he finds a job. He gets sponsored as a skateboarder, and you just can't help but root for the kid.
Yeah.
And then, like, Zach, even the moments where you were like, man, this guy is not cool.
The best thing is we know people like that.
Yeah, he at certain points becomes that abusive person, and he wallows in alcoholism, and then it just gets worse. He moves away, abandons his kid and his responsibilities. He's just trying to find himself.
Yeah.
You know? And then when he comes back...
Because he was thrust into the adulthood. Kira was like, kind of like, it's like he has to deal with it in strides. Mm-hmm. Zach is just like, oh, you're going to have a kid. You have to be an adult now. How do you react to it? And also Adina, she has to figure it out too.
And she's younger than Zach.
Yeah, that's very. And the thing is, there's so many stories in real life of people that deal with that.
Yeah,
deal with that.
And it hits so many cross sections. It touches on all these things like race, young parenthood, you know, family abuse, and finding people who, you know, finding the right people to love you and accept you.
Yeah, and transitioning from high school to life.
And for Bing, moving on from what his childhood was like with, you know, what he dealt with, and then like his half brother, like that was an interesting, you know, interview segment as well. And I think it's really important. There's a shot that I think some people would say is extraneous, but there's a point where Kent doubles back and closes a door, and he said that was something you get punished for. And Bing closes the door behind, like he turns around and closes the door behind him because there's still shadows that he's dealing with. And his mother, being, you know, knowing what had happened later on, but not realizing the severity until later, and realizing she can't take it back.
Yeah. And
you're seeing the heartbreak in his mother's eyes as he's interviewing her. This is just it's a really great documentary.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the best made in a long time.
Yeah.
You know, you go in thinking Hoop Dreams, you come out, I think this is better than Hoop Dreams.
Yeah.
I think it's a much better documentary just based on the pure fact of what happens, what they're able to touch on, and how he's able to string all these stories together.
So, Joe, after all this talk and praising, would you recommend this movie to the audience?
I would. For a documentary film, if you're interested in it, you know, I've personally been known as the gut punch film fan of my friend and family groups. If you're up for it, give it a watch. It's not as sad as you would expect when you start watching it, but it is an emotional roller coaster, and it's a tremendous documentary. This kid or young man, Bing, mark him down.
He's got a great...
Whatever he does next, you got to go see it.
He's got a great eye for camera.
Yeah,
it's beautifully shot. This movie is
great eye, great storytelling instincts, and he also co-edited. Tremendous editing in the movie.
Yeah.
can't wait to see what else he puts his touch on. Because that kid or young man, I want to see what he does next.
Yeah,
I really do.
Yeah, I agree. I will also highly recommend this. This was, and I mentioned that I talked about this in 2018. It was in my top 10 favorite films of that year. It was, I think, number 3. It was pretty up there. It's such a great. It's authentic. It's one of those things, like, sometimes you see documentaries and you think they're kind of like I watched The Last Dance recently. I think sometimes they kind of over embellish little things. This one doesn't feel over embellishing. It feels raw. It feels real. It feels authentic.
And it's such a hard, like, when you're dealing with top films of a year. Yeah. You know, it is, for most people, it is a hard barrier to get a documentary in there because we're so used and we're so inundated with narrative films. Yeah. That, you know, documentary films kind of fall by the wayside for the most part. You have to have something impressive.
Well, I'll tell you, you know what beats Minding the Gap? I have my list right here, my top 10 of 2018. You want to know what beats?
What beat it?
Number 2 was number 3. I was right. So number 2 was Avengers Infinity War. Okay. And number 1 was Mandy. Okay. So, I mean, it did beat out other movies like Why Won't You Be My Neighbor? Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Yeah. It beat a lot of pretty movies that really got me emotionally invested, but this one I think is just... there's no drag, and it's a brisk 90-some minutes. It's very brisk.
It just keeps going. Yeah. And, like, you don't feel like you retread anything. Yeah. It's always something new around the corner.
Just like life.
There's a new revelation. There's a new thing that's going on. It's like, well, Nina and Zach are broke up. And then, like, the next time you see them, well, we're kind of back together. And it's like, then we're broke up for real.
I think it's more effective because, like, we know couples and people like this in real life. Well, that's why I think it feels authentic. It's like, we know...
This is very much...
It's our generation, too, so...
Yeah, it's kids around our age, if not a little younger. We kind of understand where they're coming from. And it's a really affecting documentary. It's really well done.
So go check that out. We got 2 recommendations from us. Let us know in the comments section below what you've seen. Also, this is on Hulu, so it's very easy to accept. It's very accessible. So yeah, let us know in the comments section below. What's another documentary that's on the Criterion collection that we should do? We've done Hoop Dreams. Mm-hmm. We've done this. There's a couple other I think we've done, but there's plenty more we have to do. I know there's Showa, but like.
That would be like a special.
Yeah, because that's like
that would be one time, like, we would do that over the course of a month or 2.
Yeah, like we'll have to separate that in 9 parts.
That is a hard. That's a hard one.
It's a hard one in length and also subject matter. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, follow us on that. Subscribe, share this video. We want this to grow. 2021. We want this to be bigger in Criterion Connection. And collection. They've announced a lot of great things like the Wong Kar-wai set. Oh.
Yeah, and really, like, share this not even just for us. Like, this is one of those ones where I'm like, you share this for the film. Yes. Because a lot of people kind of pass by documentaries unless it's like Making a Murderer.
Because like, sometimes documentaries can be a little heavy-handed.
Yeah, this one, an extremely well-done one. Really deserves the attention. I want to see the filmmaker make more stuff. Yeah. That's how bad. So go share this video and get people to watch it.
Yes, please. This is a great film. Yeah, that's about it. So till next time, I'm Wade.
And I'm Joe.
And we will see you later.